It started with a breeze. A simple, stupid breeze on a Tuesday afternoon. My kitchen window was open, and the white curtains, the ones I'd bought with Arthur because he said they made the room look brighter, billowed inward like a soft, forgiving ghost. I was standing there, holding a stick of butter, of all things. I was going to make cookies. A lonely, old woman's cliché. The breeze caught the thin, floral fabric of my sundress, pressing it flat against my body for a single, fleeting second. It was just a whisper of air against my skin, a momentary outline of a shape I'd long forgotten I possessed. And he saw. I hadn't heard him come in. He was just there. In the doorway to the kitchen. My son-in-law, Ben. His tool belt was slung low on his hips, a testament to the reason for his visit, a leaky faucet I could have easily called a real plumber to fix. But I'd called him. I always found an excuse to call him. His eyes, usually so warm and laughing, were locked on me. Not my face. On the silhouette the breeze had so carelessly revealed. The stick of butter in my hand felt suddenly, absurdly, obscene. It was just a moment. A heartbeat. Less. He blinked, and the look was gone, replaced by a polite, slightly confused smile. I felt a flush creep up my neck, hot and shameful. I dropped the butter onto the counter. My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. What came next, I never saw it coming. Imagine if this happened to you. A simple breeze, a casual glance, and the entire axis of your quiet, predictable world tilts, never to be righted again. My name is Clara, and for 58 years, my life has been a study in quietness. My husband, David, passed 5 years ago. Cancer. It was a long, drawn-out goodbye that left me not just a widow, but a hollowed-out shell. The house we shared for 30 years became an echo chamber of memories. My daughter, Sarah, is my entire world, my bright, beautiful girl. She's the reason I get up most days. And she's the reason for the deep, gnawing guilt that has become my constant companion. You see, Ben is her husband. He's 36. Vibrant, kind, with carpenter's hands that look capable of building worlds or breaking them. He has this energy, this life force that seems to radiate from him, and whenever he's near, my quiet, dusty world feels a little less dim. After David died, he started checking in on me. Little things. Changing a light bulb I couldn't reach, bringing over leftovers from one of Sarah's elaborate dinners. He became a tether to the world of the living. But something shifted in the last few months. The conversations lingered a little longer. The hugs goodbye felt a fraction tighter. I'd catch him looking at me not with the polite concern of a son-in-law, but with a curious, unreadable intensity that made my breath catch. I told myself I was imagining it. A lonely old woman's fantasy. My life had become a monochrome painting, and Ben was the one spot of bold, undeniable color I wasn't allowed to touch. Why am I telling you this? Because sometimes, the most profound earthquakes in our lives begin with the smallest tremors. A glance held a second too long. A casual brush of a hand. A breeze through an open window. Before I go on, I just want to say thank you. To all of you who listen to these stories, who share a piece of your heart in the comments, you have no idea what it means. If you're new here, and you feel that pull, that connection to a story of forbidden feelings, then consider subscribing. It truly helps this channel grow. And if this story starts to resonate with you, a like lets me know I'm not alone in telling it. This is a confession I've held onto for months, and sharing it, well, it's both terrifying and a relief. The incident with the breeze hung in the air between. As for the rest of that afternoon, the air in my kitchen felt thick, charged with something unspoken. Ben finished with the faucet, his movements efficient and sure. I busied myself with the cookies, my hands trembling slightly as I measured the flour. All fixed, Clara, he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Thank you, Ben. I don't know what I'd do without you. The words felt loaded, heavy with a meaning I hadn't intended. He didn't leave immediately. He leaned against the counter, watching me. You seem different today. I laughed, a nervous, tinkling sound that was foreign to my own ears. Different. I'm the same old Clara. No, he said, his gaze steady. You're not. He kept coming back after that. The excuses became flimsier. A squeaky door hinge. A check on the gutters. With each visit, the careful boundary between us grew more porous. We started talking. Really talking. Not about Sarah, or the weather, or the news. But about life. About regret. About the quiet desperation of a life half-lived. It was during one of these conversations, a week later, that the first real crack appeared. We were in the living room, the late afternoon sun casting long, golden shadows across the Persian rug David had loved. I was telling him about a trip David and I had always planned to take to Italy but never did. Work, then his health, always got in the way. I feel like I spent my whole life waiting, I confessed, my voice barely a whisper. Waiting for the right time, for retirement, for life to begin. And now it's too late. Ben was sitting in the armchair opposite me, his large frame making the furniture look small. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. It's not too late, Clara. You're 58, not dead. It feels like it sometimes, I said, the honesty shocking me. This house, it's a beautiful tomb. He was silent for a long moment. Sarah worries about you. She thinks you're lonely. I am, I admitted, the words a raw confession. But it's more than that. It's an ache. A deep, physical ache for connection. To feel seen, not as Sarah's mother, or David's widow, but as a woman. Can you understand that? His eyes met mine, and the air left the room. Yes, he said, his voice husky. I can. You know that feeling when a conversation crosses an invisible line. When the subtext becomes the only text. The room felt smaller, the space between our chairs a vast, dangerous chasm I both feared and longed to cross. He held my gaze, and in his, I saw not pity, but a startling, mirroring recognition. But then something changed. He looked away, breaking the spell. He stood up, mumbled something about Sarah expecting him, and left. The silence he left behind was deafening. The following Thursday, he came over to help me move a heavy bookcase. It was a flimsy pretext, and we both knew it. He arrived in a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, and the sight of his bare, tanned arms sent a jolt through my system that was both thrilling and shaming. We moved the bookcase with relative ease, his strength doing most of the work. But as we were shifting it into its new position, my hand slipped against the wood. A sharp, searing pain shot through my finger. I gasped, pulling my hand back. A long, angry splinter was embedded deep in my pad of my index finger. Clara, are you okay? Ben was at my side in an instant, his hand closing gently around my wrist. It's just a splinter, I said, my voice shaky. The feel of his skin on mine was electric. Let me see. He led me to the kitchen sink, his grip firm yet tender. He turned on the light and examined my finger, his brow furrowed in concentration. His touch was so careful, so focused. He was standing close, so close I could smell the clean scent of his soap and the faint, musky smell of his sweat. My heart was hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. This is a deep one, he murmured. I have tweezers in my truck. Hold on. He returned a moment later, and with a surgeon's precision, he began to work the splinter out. I winced, and his other hand came up to cradle mine, his thumb stroking the back of my hand in a soothing, rhythmic motion. It was an intimate, caring gesture that unmoored me completely. I focused on the top of his head, on the way his dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck. I had a sudden, wild impulse to reach out and touch it. Almost got it, he whispered, his breath warm against my skin. Then it happened, the moment the thumbnail promised. The splinter came free, and a tiny bead of blood welled up in its place. Without a second thought, without a moment of hesitation, he brought my finger to his mouth. He didn't just suck the blood away. It was slower than that. More deliberate. His tongue, warm and wet and impossibly soft, swept over the pad of my finger. It was a languid, tender, cleansing stroke. He licked me like I was butter, like he was savoring the taste, melting away the pain and the years of neglect with a single, shocking act of intimacy. A sound escaped my lips, a soft, strangled gasp. My knees felt weak. The sensation was indescribable. It wasn't sexual, not in a crude way. It was primal. It was a connection so direct, so visceral, it bypassed all thought and went straight to the core of that aching loneliness he'd recognized in me. It was a silent answer to a question I'd been too afraid to ask. He released my finger, his eyes meeting mine. They were dark, wide with a shock that mirrored my own. He looked as stunned as I felt. A drop of my blood was on his lip. He slowly wiped it away with the back of his hand, never breaking eye contact. The air crackled. The world had shrunk to this kitchen, to the space between our bodies, to the memory of his tongue on my skin. He started, but no other words came. I was the one who broke. The guilt, the desire, the sheer, terrifying wrongness of it all came crashing down. "You should go," I whispered, my voice trembling. He just nodded, a storm of emotion in his eyes. He turned and walked out, and I was left alone, leaning against the counter for support, my finger tingling with a phantom heat, my entire being redefined by a single, forbidden touch. He didn't come back for 2 weeks. The silence was agony. I replayed the moment over and over in my mind. Had I imagined the intensity? Had I led him on? The moral conflict was a war inside me. He was my daughter's husband. The man who held her at night. The thought made me sick with self-loathing. And yet, the memory of that touch, of the way he'd looked at me, was a flame I couldn't extinguish. It warmed the cold, empty places in me. When he finally showed up, unannounced, on my doorstep one rainy evening, the tension was a physical presence between us. "We need to talk," he said, his hair damp from the rain. I let him in. We stood in the same living room, the rain pattering against the windows like a frantic heartbeat. "I can't stop thinking about it," he said, his voice raw. "About you. Ben, we can't," I said, wrapping my arms around myself. "This is wrong. It's a betrayal of everything." "I know," he almost shouted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "God, Clara, I know. But what I feel when I'm with you, it's real. With Sarah, it's comfortable. It's safe. But with you, it's like coming alive. You have this quiet fire. I see the life you've lived in your eyes, the strength, the pain. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." His words were a balm and a poison. They fed the desperate, hidden part of me that had been starving for decades. We talked for hours that night. He confessed to the quiet dissatisfactions in his own marriage, the feeling of being trapped in a life that looked perfect from the outside. I confessed to my fear of dying without ever having truly lived, without ever feeling that kind of raw, desperate want again. We didn't touch. Not once. But the emotional intimacy we built that night was more profound, more dangerous than any physical act could have been. We were two lost souls, finding a forbidden harbor in each other. We made a silent, terrible agreement that day. We would keep this secret. We would navigate this impossible terrain, knowing it could destroy everything we loved, for the chance to feel, just for a little while, that we were truly alive. That day with the splinter changed everything. It was the day the quiet, monochrome world I'd built for myself was suddenly, irrevocably, flooded with violent, terrifying color. The memory of that sensation, "He licked me like butter," is burned into me. It's my secret treasure and my private shame. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of the night, I still bring my finger to my own lips, trying to recapture the ghost of that feeling, the shocking tenderness of it. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated presence. For those few seconds, I wasn't a widow, I wasn't a mother, I wasn't an old woman. I was just Clara, a woman being tasted, being soothed, being seen in a way I never had been before. But was it worth it? That's the question that haunts me. The guilt is a cold stone in my stomach whenever I see my daughter's face, so full of trust and love. I look at Ben now, across the dinner table at a family gathering, and I see the same war reflected in his eyes. We share a secret that could shatter our family into a million irreparable pieces. We have built a beautiful, agonizing prison for ourselves. That simple breeze through my kitchen window set all of this in motion. It revealed a vulnerability I didn't know I still possessed, and it led me to a crossroads of desire and morality I never thought I'd face. I learned that the heart doesn't age at the same rate as the body. That the need for connection, for passion, doesn't fade, it just goes dormant, waiting for the right, or the terribly wrong, spark to ignite it again. My life is now a before and after. Before the breeze, and after the lick. And I am left to wonder if the brief, glorious heat of that forbidden fire was worth the eternal chill of the guilt that now follows me. If this story resonated with you, if it touched a nerve or reminded you of a secret of your own, then you understand why I had to share it. Sometimes, confessing a feeling, even to strangers, is the only way to carry its weight. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories that explore the messy, complicated, and beautiful corners of the human heart, then please, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next.